All right, so I wanted to share about a pretty interesting experience that I feel like I get to live at a pretty young age. And I mainly just wanted to share my story about how I've lost everything after making a ton of money and currently what I'm doing as I rebuild and what that process has been feeling like for myself. So I'm 25 now, and for context, I'm somebody that before the age of 25, I've made $1 million in revenue with my business, and not many people can say that they've lived that unique experience, right? So that context there is interesting. By no means am I saying that like it's never happened before in the past, but it's a weird experience going from somebody who's made a ton of money and then losing it all. And when I say losing it all, literally, I've lost all the money that I've made over the last almost 4 full years of being a full-time entrepreneur, and it's been interesting. And when you're in the game long enough, I've learned that eventually you go broke. And I'm listening to other entrepreneurs and other people that I admire and respect, and every single story at one point there is a rough patch. And I'm making this video to share the rough patch because not a lot of people want to share and document their losses, right? Because at a moment in my life where I'm experiencing something that's a little bit more quote unquote difficult from a financial perspective, I wanted to share that. So, starting my business, I started back in 2019. So, right after high school I didn't have enough money to go to college. And so essentially I took a pretty traditional route for most online entrepreneurs. But long story short, because I didn't have enough money, I ended up getting into the online space, trying to learn how to make money. And because I grew up with a single immigrant mother, it was never really an option. Like, I was so motivated to make money from a young age that like being broke to me didn't correlate. So after high school, I got a job at Costco before I got into the online space. And, back in the day, I remember that the top managers at that company was making, a little over like 100 grand, like 120, maybe 130 grand a year, which I remember thinking at the time that it was pretty good money. But I knew that in order to get to that rate, like I couldn't do it at a young age because the people that were there making that type of money was, 20, 38 a year's age my senior, right? And I just couldn't really, sync up with that time frame because I had urgency. That was something that was forced onto me at a younger age because it's like with the single mom, seeing her work every single day was just not it, like that was my main motivator to want to learn how to make more money because I want to retire her more than anything else. Because that wasn't even my main motivator to get into, entrepreneurship wasn't inherently just to make money and to like live a flashy lifestyle. My goal was to like retire my mom. Still is to this very day. Unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity to accomplish it. One day, soon. And so from about the age of 19 to 21, I worked part-time. And when I was at that age working in the food court in Costco, I remember I was bagging freaking hot dogs, serving pizza to people, right? And I was making like, I think $15 an hour. And I remember scrolling on YouTube one day when an ad came across my, screen. It was like knowledge, and if some of you guys get that reference, it was Tai Lopez. It was him standing in front of a Lamborghini. And at the time it was brand new, the online internet space was a very foreign, thing to me. But when I saw that ad, I was like, dang, like there's somebody that, was successful, from what it seems like. I could say that like it was easy to believe all those things because I didn't know any better. So I clicked on the advertisement and I actually came across this page where I watched this video where he broke down how you can make $100,000 a year. That was my goal at that given point in time. And that broke down what running a social media marketing agency was. And so fast forward, I took that course and I learned how to run Facebook ads, which now to this day is something that I still do. It's called, media buying, which is a whole different perspective. But I didn't know, left from right at that point in time. And what I ended up doing is after I learned this course and learned this program and learned how to run Facebook ads, I ended up walking to local businesses trying to sell them like my service of running Facebook ads. And when I went to these, businesses, there's a highway that stretches all the way north and south in Washington. I drove up that highway every single weekend, before, after, and on the weekends of work. And I would door knock into salons. I would walk into, freaking bars. I would walk into any type of local business that I possibly can. And I would hand out business cards, flyers, and ask for the business owner. And, that's what I did for some time. For about a couple months, I had zero results. And eventually, I met this one guy that owned a little car dealership. And on a very rainy day, I walked into his car dealership, and I presented my services to him, and I got my first yes. And the crazy thing is I got my first $300 check. And I remember looking at that thing being like mind blown, because I just made money. Somebody just transacted some sort of money in order for me to provide a service. And for me, that was like the start of something that like unlocked Pandora's box for me, essentially, because my whole paradigm shifted in that moment, because I just was able to transact and get money from somebody without working a job, right? Because I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial household. Everybody that I grew up with, I was told to go to school, as most Asian Americans are. And, most of the people that were more successful in my family actually got a degree and went the traditional route of working a regular 9-to-5. So when I had that money in my hand, I was like, this is crazy. And so that's kind of when I got hooked into this whole thing, and like my whole, world shifted, because I was like, dude, I can get paid outside of a job. And that to me was the first shift that I was like, you know what, this entrepreneurship stuff is real. Running an online business is real. And that was my walk into it. I wasn't born with any connections. I wasn't born with anyone that ran a business. I didn't understand this concept. I used to think that people that, owned a business would show up to work with the laptop and just click stuff in at an office and then leave, and they would make a ton of money. But that was my preconceived notion. I was very ignorant towards what business really was. And over that time period, I kept knocking on doors, and I went from my first client to my second client to my third client. No results. But long story short, I got to the point over that 2-year period where I made enough to replace my income. And that was my side hustle. So I just kept trying, and I could have gone faster if I was more consistent, and I worked on my personal development, and I developed consistency, which were things that I learned at a later given point in time. But when I was able to make enough money, I remember walking into the office of Costco being like, I am putting in my 2 weeks. And the feeling that I got at that given point in time was miraculous. And I felt like on top of the world because of one simple fact. I tried to get promoted. They denied me a promotion. And that's when I quiet quit. And I was like, I am going to do this business thing full time. And when I got to that point where I was able to replace my income, that was probably one of the most satisfying feelings that, I was able to experience as a young adult, which was I am independent enough. And obviously I still live with my mom. So there was no risk. If I was going to take a risk, that was the best time to do it. So I sent it, quit my job, and within about 3 months later, I was able to get to about $3.5K a month in cash collected for my agency. And month after month, I started to progress, and I was able to take my business and get to about $10,000 at the age of, 21. I made my first $10,000 in a month. And I worked on honing my skills. And looking back, I just took one step in front of the other. So my main niche with my marketing agency became car dealerships. Eventually, I ran out of people to knock on doors, and I started learning how to sell online. But the car dealership space is a very niche industry. So I ended up trying to find more people to sell to online in Facebook groups. And there wasn't people that, owned a car dealership that was on Facebook groups, but what I ended up finding a lot of people that were online were car salesmen. So long story short, I ended up taking my skill set that I learned and acquired from 2019 until about 2021 of learning how to run Facebook ads, and I started teaching that skill. And when I started teaching that skill to car salesmen, that's when I was starting to make that jump from 3.5K. And then over the next 4 months, I was able to get to 10K, my first 10K month ever. And mentally speaking and spiritually and emotionally speaking, that period of the beginning of 2022 to April of 2022 was really hard. And I still have videos and screenshots and photos of that time period, but that's when I really started to work on my personal life, because a lot of people think that from 0 to 10K a month, and I used to pedestalize that because it was my goal for like over 2 years, right? Back from 2019 until 2021 until I actually really hit it. And a lot of people actually think that in order to hit 10K a month, it's like a technical thing. There's some secret strategy that you don't know. But the caveat that I really learned that took me to 10K a month was having the right, vehicle, meaning like having a business or having a skill or a opportunity. You could look into multiple opportunities. I could have made 10K a month with e-commerce. I could have made 10K a month with content. I could have made 10K a month with sales. I could have made 10K a month with media buying. Media buying was the thing that I ended up learning, which was running those Facebook ads. And that was the skill that I was consistent with enough where eventually I was able to hit that $10,000 in a month. And I remember there's on my YouTube channel, I have myself recording the things I learned when I hit my first $10,000 month. Very interesting. And so once I developed and worked on myself and I started to, recreate my identity, because in order to get from that phase, I had to start dropping a lot of vices. I had to let go of, smoking weed, going out every single weekend, and I just really locked in. I went 180, like completely 180. The guy that I used to be when I was 19, some young, dumb kid that just, liked to drink, party, and do all that stuff, I was like completely normal. like those things were normalized for me back then in high school. And, I was just like that typical guy getting out of school. And then all of a sudden I had to transform myself. I had to work on myself to the deepest extent and recreate the way that I identify myself and the way that I, see myself, because that changed my behavior. And so from that year of 2021, that was my first year making $100,000. It was so crazy. I was like, golly, I actually made $109,000 in total revenue that year. And at the age of 21, that was actually pretty good. And I actually kept doubling down on the route that I was going. And eventually, once I developed my character traits and my consistency, I started learning more skills. I started learning how to go ahead and run ads for my own business. I started to learn how to hire. I started to learn how to train. I started to learn how to manage people. I started to learn how to sell at a very elite level. And eventually, over the span of 2022 and 2023, in 2023, I was able to hit my first $50,000 month, right? And it was this slow, consistent build of me just skill stacking and being consistent. And this is when I, making that kind of money was like really a bit shocked, but I was very lonely. Like during that time period, I cut off all of my friends. I wasn't successful enough to have like any new friends. And eventually I got to the point where I was consistently doing $50,000 a month with my business, and then I hit a roadblock. But essentially what ended up happening at that age as well was in the middle of the year of 2023, I had saved up enough money, like well over $100,000 at that point. And I was at the point where I wanted to move out because, from 21 until, coming up on the age of 23, that year and a half, I just wanted to push myself further to, get out of the home, not be dependent on my mom. And I believe that that was the foundational shift of being more independent that would have allowed me to continuously grow. Man, was I wrong, because I had to go through a very hard season and a lot of humbling, because up until that point, making $50,000 a month when you're 22, 23, I had a lot of ego, I had a lot of, man, like I'm hot shit, and I ended up moving out from the state of Washington into Las Vegas with some of my friends. And these were friends that I met online, and they're still friends to this day. But I remember leaving home and going to a brand new city. And this was a very interesting period of my life because I grew up in, a ghetto is sort of big, not too big city in Washington, but nobody that I knew ever left home, right? And me leaving the nest was just a lot of things I had to learn, right? Like, I grew up without a father, so I never really understood what it was like to have leadership when it came to structuring my life, having discipline, and creating what it felt like to essentially become a man. And that was very difficult for me to learn because I had to learn it the hard way, right? And becoming independent was good for me because I was proud of my success that I had built up until that point, but I started to learn, like, foundational things, how to start paying for my own rent, how to budget correctly, a little bit, a long story short, I enjoyed a little bit of the fruits of my labor at that point. When I moved to Las Vegas in 2023, June of 2023, that's when I found my partner that I'm still with to this day. I started, having this girl that was in my life. That was a brand new shift. I was living in a brand new city in an area that I didn't know. I was living with my friends that, I've just, started to develop a deeper relationship with. I just moved out. I'm learning how to balance work with working out and being in a brand new area, and developing different habits and learning how to cook for myself and buy stuff for myself. It's completely different. So that was a very new fish, a fish in a different pond type of experience. But it was incredibly healthy for me because during that time period, I also got really close to Christ, right? I've always was very curious. So before I moved over to Washington or into Las Vegas, I started looking into different churches. And my friend that was my roommate that I moved out with in Las Vegas, he was the one that actually introduced me to going to the church. He was the one that invited me to go to church. And as I developed this relationship, there's so many things that outside of my professional life that changed. Being in a new city, having a girlfriend, starting to find my relationship in Christ was a big, hard shift for me. So my business plateaued. And as my business plateaued, I'm going through the next season of 2024. 2024 was crazy, okay? So now I'm 23, about to become 24 years old, and I am pissed that I spent most of 2023 stuck around 50 grand a month, because in March of 2023 was when I hit my first 50 grand month, and I wasn't able to break past until even at the end of the very freaking year, right? So in June until the end of the year, I had all that stuff that was happening with moving and, finding my way and being able to take care of myself. And I going into 2024, I was full throttle. Let's figure this stuff out. I'm trying to scale up this year. And holy shit, that was very stressful because, mind you, I have never had proper business experience. I haven't been exposed to a proper company. I've only built from my own instincts and from my own grit and my own willpower. And so in 2024, I ended up investing $18,000 into a program, and I actually invested another 25 grand. So that was $36,000 of the money that I had saved up into coaching, consulting, and mentorships to learn how to grow and scale beyond 50 grand. And because at that point, I just wanted to scale more than anything. I wanted to grow because I wanted to be $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 a month guy. I wanted to be somebody, right? I wanted to level myself up. I wanted to get to the point where I've been trying to strive for a very long time. So the rest of that year, I was spending money out of the ass. I was running at a 30% profit margin with my business. I was consistently making around 50 grand a month because I was making 50 grand a month, but I was spending at least 25 to 30 grand every single month, because what I was trying to do was I ended up hiring more people, and I actually ended up hiring out a sales team. right? And so this was the first time where I really learned how to like hire people. And this was very difficult. I didn't even know, nobody taught me how to like hire nobody. This was a very difficult lesson for me. And so what I ended up doing was I learned how to hire. I would go, post some job listings online, and I would interview people, and I had no fucking clue what I was even looking for. I didn't even know I didn't even know what a good sales rep looked like. I didn't know how to train people. I didn't know how to manage people. It was so fucking hard, right? Doing it by myself was easy enough, but like trying to figure it out for myself felt like I was feeling my way through the dark. And by no means did that $36,000 I invested into those coaching programs really teach me jack shit about training and managing and how to actually run a business. Like it didn't correlate. And mind you, I'm still working with car salesmen, and it's like stuff that I don't really even give a shit about. Like I didn't give a shit about the people I was trying to serve. I was just trying to make a fuck ton of money. Like that's where like it shifted from good to bad, because my intention that I started out with when I was 19 of wanting to, make something of myself, be able to take care of my mom, it became more ego driven because I wanted to hit these numbers so bad. I was so hell-bent. I would do anything to hit those numbers. My God became business. And that was the point where God had to check me and grind me back down. So this was the beginning of the end. So all of 2024, I'm stressed out of my mind. I tried scaling my sales team 2 times that year. And all of the money that I had saved up, the hundreds, the well over the $100,000, I don't even know at what point, right? Like the well over the $100,000, I had to liquidate all of my investments. All of my investments. And mind you, I had tens of thousands of dollars in stocks. I had tens of thousands of dollars in crypto. I had tens of thousands of dollars in my retirement fund. Like I had my shit set up, but I had to liquidate all of that shit, all of it. And because I was just spending so much money every single month, and I had my living expenses on top of that. It was such a hard year. It was a really hard year. The whole year of 2024 was just getting my ass whooped and getting my ass handed to me and losing money, not making anything. And that led me to 2025, and this was very interesting. I'll tell you the whole story about this because this was a very pivotal moment for me in my life. Now it's 2026, but 2025 was a very interesting year, and I documented most of it. But maybe I can share that for another time. But I'll give you the whole rundown of what happened. So 2024 passes by. I'm so beat up. I'm so worn down. I'm like, fuck, this is not even worth it. Like, I just wasted my whole year, lost all the money that I've been saving up, and I felt so far away from my relationship with God. I felt like I was a loser. I just was so angry. I was so angry about all the effort and energy over a 12-month period of how hard I was trying, how hard I was grinding, and no results, just losing and losing and losing and losing, and to the point that I broke. Beginning of 2025, I sit down and I pray. And I ask, God, I feel far from you now. I want to feel close to you. What can I do? What should I do? And you know what he told me is, he told me that I want you to surrender. You're a great kid, but you don't listen to me. You do what you want to do, but you need to surrender to me. And when I heard that, it was very interesting because I knew that came from him. It wasn't from me. So I went to church the very next week, and the sermon was about surrender. And curiously, in the back of my mind, when you get that, when you know you get that gut feeling when something's like, that's not a coincidence. It was one of those. And the pastor that is talking about how God needs to come before anything else in your life, and that God is the most important thing in your entire life, and that if you sacrifice everything for God, God will take care of the rest. And while I went to that sermon, I started to really get the gears turning in my head. And I remember going to the coffee shop after church one day with my friend saying, I think business is my God. I think business, I would do like anything at this given point in time if it meant growing. And when I really started sitting with that idea that I was so obsessed with growth that it was becoming my idol. It unsettled me a lot because there's a warning in the Bible about not being able to worship two gods. And when you worship mammon, you cannot be worshiping God. And mammon in the Bible is essentially the greed and the desire and the lust for money. And as that sermon went on, there was 2 sermons about it specifically. After the second one, I went to lunch with my friend, as I usually do. And at a casino where I was getting lunch at, I was having lunch, and all of a sudden this girl walks up to me who's obviously a little bit nervous. But mind you, this girl, she's never seen me before, and I don't know anything about her. I don't know her name. She doesn't know me. I see her approach me, and out of the corner of my eye, I see her walk up to me. And with a shaky voice, she says, "Hey, I know this is interesting. This might be weird, but I have something to tell you." And I was like, "Yeah, go ahead." Obviously a little bit curious because she seemed so shaken. And she says, "I don't know what you're going through. God put it in my heart to tell you that whatever you're doing, He wants you to surrender it to Him." And my throat sank down to my stomach, and a pit just welled up. And to this day, it was very interesting because I had that gut punch of exactly what that meant. And everything that I've been going through up until that point, as she walks away and I continue about my day, I remember sitting down in my car, crying, thinking, why is that like what I need to do? Because everything that's happened over the last year, I'm so tired, I'm so fed up, I'm so angry. Everything that I'm doing, He wants me to surrender the one thing that I've been idolizing at the most, because God wants all your heart. He wants all of it. And so when I heard that, I mulled over it for 2 weeks. From the middle of January to the beginning of February. For 2 weeks, I just kept pacing. I was like, "Is this really what you want me to do, God? Is this really what you want me to do?" Because, mind you, I got baptized in April 14 of 2024. And so God has been working on my heart this whole time. And as I pursue my relationship with God, it's like one of these things where He either shouts or He whispers. And this time it was a shout. It's like, "You're going to listen to me this time, or this is the last time I'm going to tell you." Because it's always been something as I've grown in my relationship with Him that just felt off. Like the business I was running felt off. It just felt like there was something that was like supposed to be more. But like when things are in alignment, when you follow God's path and you surrender to His vision and the vision that He has for you in your life, it'll feel easy. And so it was a very difficult time period of my life. But that first week after that happened, I ended up sitting down, and this was the hardest decision I've ever had to make. I sit down with my team members, and I sit down with somebody who's been with me for over a year, working with me on my company. I was saying, "We're going to change the industry. We're going to do so many different things." And I tell him, like, "Hey, man, I can't do this because it's not aligned with the vision that I feel like has been placed into my heart, and that's for my life. And it's a very difficult decision to want to do this and walk away from it and not make it work, but I don't think this is for me." So I shut down my business, and I had 80 active clients that we were servicing, and I had to, for the rest of February until June, slowly, I shut down that business, and we let go of all the clients that I had. And I, for the rest of 2025, had no clue what the heck I was going to do next. And so I spent most of 2025 wandering, asking, praying, God, what's next? What do I do? I'm fully surrendered to you. I want you to be my God. I want to put you first. I want to deepen my relationship with you because you know what's best. And it was a very interesting time period because, I just kind of tried out a few different things. Like after I shut down my business, I tried wanting to run a coaching program, and I did that for a little while, but it didn't feel right. I ran it from probably March until all the way up until October. And I tried a few different variations. I tried marketing it. I tried, selling it. And in 2025, I think I made about 86 grand, but, not all of it was profit. And I just made enough to kind of stay afloat, essentially. But after just going through that time period, I just kept my heart open, my mind open, and I knew that I was in alignment with having a bigger impact. And so my desires wanted to go back to serving younger men that are lost, trying to figure out their way in life. Because for me, not having that guidance was so has played such a big role. I've been finding my way through the dark my entire life up until this point of being 25, and it's continued to be that up until this point. And I know that there's something on my life. There's something that's deep. I've been gifted with certain talents and resources to go far, but God had to work me down and grind me down to a pulp, because I understand now that God is in control, and whatever God will bless and whatever has the hand of God behind it will always work. And so when I felt that my entire life was so focused on making money and serving my own ego, it made sense as to why he had to break that down for me. Because when your work's not aligned and you're stressed out all the time, you're not happy, that's not the fruit of God. Because the fruit of God and the fruit of the Spirit is peace, love, happiness, and patience, right? And so now that I understood that, it led me to the point of just, seeking God and who he wanted me to be. And so in June of 2025, I had a really big revelation, because I ended up going through this experience where I met one of my friends, and I just kind of found who I wanted to be, who I needed to be. Because the person I was in 2023 was a hustler, a grinder, do it at all costs, do it no matter what, fuck your feelings, fuck your emotions, fuck anything else, go make the money, go make money, right? And it was so aggressive. It was so black and white. It was very egotistical. I thought everything was built off of my own back and my own two hands. And the only reason why I was successful is because of me, because other people aren't as successful as me. They're not as intelligent. And I'm the one that's gifted. I'm the one that's talented. I was the one that made it out. And me. 2026 and 2026 has shown me that it's God, all about him and his vision and his mission and how he's molded me, because now I'm understand he's the one in control. And ultimately, that was the biggest lesson, is understanding that God is always in control, and whatever he wants you to do, you have free will, but when you choose to follow God, he will help put you into a better path. And so, very interesting experience in 2025. I basically, again, had lived off of savings all of 2025 and basically dwindled down to the point where I had like a few grand left in the bank, and that was closer to the end of the year. And another miraculous thing that happened, this is why God is showing me that he's in control, and that whatever happens, I don't need to try. I don't need to struggle. He will take care of me. He will provide for me. Because as soon as I lost and went down to almost nothing in my bank account, right? And I had too much to want to ask for help. I'm praying to God. I'm like, Father, I followed you. I need help. I need help. I need something. And financially speaking, I get a phone call from a friend that I've had a relationship with since I was a child. And when I was 19, his mother gave me the opportunity to invest into a property. Selling it below market value, we got that house at a very good deal, but my money had been tied up within that home for a very, very long time. right when I'm about to go broke, this money that I've had tied up for a very long time, I get a phone call and they tell me, hey, TJ, we're looking to liquidate this cash out of this home. Are you willing to release, your ownership out of this property? And I just broke down in tears, man, because I'm just like, God is miraculous. It's a miracle, right? Because that is a living testimony. That is my testimony. And when the moment got the darkest and I surrendered to Christ and I needed him the most, he showed up. And time after time, I'm surrendered. I feel genuinely amazed that God, no matter what circumstances, will always provide. God is a father to me. He became my guidance, my shield, my rock, my anchor, and everything that I devote my life towards this higher power, right? He's changed my life. He's taken care of me. And I will preach about this, about my testimony, about my story, because through this I've become so much closer to God. And he showed me that when I need it most, it's not through my own grit, my own willpower, but he, above all else, will provide and protect for me. And it's given me so much peace in this season. So June, I found my identity in 2025. And later that year, I got clarity, because when I started to figure out who I wanted to be in Christ and who God wanted me to be, and how he wanted me to be somebody that was more reserved and strategic, quiet, calm, calculated, forward thinking, and how this fire that he blessed me with needs to be contained and controlled. Otherwise, a hot flame can be blown out by the wind, but you need to create a furnace. And this intense consistency and this level of humility and this level of thoughtfulness and this level of vision and this level of patience are characteristics of a man. And that man is who he wanted me to be. And so as I work on those characteristics, in October, I had this epiphany moment getting off of a phone call where, yes, I'm selling like a $3,000, $5,000, coaching program at that time, which was fine. We made like 10K a month, like pretty often that year, but I just felt like there was more. And when Adam was made, God gave him a garden. And so what I learned is when your identity is right, God wants to give you a craft, a mission, a purpose, because everyone's born with a very unique gift and a very unique purpose within this life. And I found that I've found this purpose of wanting to serve young men. I wanted to serve and lead by example and create a life and just grow and live my life by example, not by words, not verbally, but to live an example. So an example that I wish I always had, and a standard that I can set, not only for myself, but for other people. And so all this experience accumulated over the years of sales, marketing, and these technical stuff, but this deep working of surrender and being in alignment. For the first time, I felt happy, because I thought about, man, I'm so gifted technically speaking, but my opportunity vehicle isn't matching up. And so I started to think, how could I, utilize my skill set? Because after shutting down my last business, I felt like I was doing the same things over and over again. And I was like, it kind of feels like insanity. Like, why would I do the same thing that I was doing before, but in a different context? And so I stopped that and I decided to go back to the drawing board. And when I went back to the drawing board, I have this vision that I want for my life and my heart and my spirit, but it doesn't correlate back into what society needs right now, because a lot of people don't want to hear about vision, mission, values, becoming the type of man that you need to be. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear, how can I make 10K this month? Like, that's how most people think. And I don't blame you, because I was at that point at a given point in time, and I wouldn't have understood what importance God plays. I wouldn't have understood the level of depth and maturity that you need to gain in order to be sustainably to sustain growth long term, because I had to break my back, break my teeth in order to learn these, very hard earned lessons. And so that put me in a position now where I wanted to find a way to stretch my legs and find a way to utilize my skill set and build tangible results. So I decided to go back into the agency space because I didn't want to run a coaching business anymore. And this time I was going to do it differently. I was going to focus on becoming the best media buyer that I possibly can be, spending as much money as I possibly can, building good systems. And now I got back into the trenches because as I build my agency, a media buying agency, I want to document, share the lessons that I learned along the way, which is what this YouTube channel is for, and then eventually get my way back where I become really good at this. I actually partner up with very big companies, and I'm starting to spend $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year in advertising, and I get really good at this craft. So when the atom analogy and the atom and the garden analogy correlates back to this idea of having a craft, a passion, a love, a drive. And I'm passionate about media buying for a deeper reason than the technical aspect. It's because of who it's made me. Media buying has took me from a kid sleeping on the living room floor as an immigrant that grew up with a single mom that went through a lot of hardship, but it took me to become a man. That's what it was. A very hard-earned 6 years of my life to really put me into a position where I feel proud of who I am to this day. And by no means am I perfect, but I've worked and become somebody that I'm proud of. I can say that. And so that skill was the tip of the iceberg that led me down to this whole rabbit hole, this whole trail that got left behind. And so I wanted to be good at it because, as with any craft and with any garden that you decide to get really good at, whether that's basketball, whether that's music, whether that's cooking, there's a love and a devotion and a passion and a drive and a pull motivation. Most of my life up until 25 was push motivation. How can I bend reality to my will? But now, after dissolving that identity of egotistical to being somebody who's surrendered and humble in front of the face of God and understand that He's the one in control, and no matter how hard that I try, the only thing I can do is show up and be the best man and the best version of myself possible and let God do the rest. And now that I'm surrendered to that idea and that concept, I am no longer in a state of needing results now. I'm okay with planting my roots. I'm just wanting to be a better person so that I can serve others. And so, I got that idea of wanting to be really good at media buying. So that led me to, in October, wanting to look for opportunities to work with businesses where I partner up with them and help them run their ads. And, I didn't get any results for the first month. Second month, I landed a $2,000 a month client. And then in the beginning of December, I landed a $1,500 a month client where I was making $3,500 a month. And, that's when I was almost running out of money. I had a little bit to pay my bills, but I got a call from my friend where now I've had this opportunity to get paid out where, I've had this, saving grace where now that I've adjusted my life, my ego and my lifestyle and found this path and wanting to hone in on it. I have, some money now saved aside. I have some breathing room. And then in January, I landed a 4.5K a month client. And then my first client that I landed is now paying me 4K a month. And now I'm back at sitting around 10 grand a month. And I might have another opportunity that's sitting for another 3 grand and might make another, additional 3 grand with one of my clients. And I might be making 15K a month again soon, maybe give or take, God willing, whatever He wants, truly. And so I say all of this to hopefully inspire you that no matter what, as long as you are aligned and you surrender to God and you truly want to follow Him, not your own path, but you ask God, you pray to God, who do you want me to be? Where do you want me to go? God will show you. He'll take care of you. God is a loving Father. As a father, He will be hard on you, strict for you, because He knows what you need to learn the hard way. And as myself, I did have to learn the hard way, these lessons. And obviously, I'm still learning. I'm still in the game. I'm still having to learn all these things. And 5 years from now, all the things I know today will not be as relevant or not be as big of a paradigm shift as somebody when I'm 30 years old, 35 years old, and so on and so forth. But beyond that, I'm grateful that I have a relationship with Christ. I'm grateful that I have a relationship with God, and He's shown me who He wants me to be and where He wants me to go. And I'm grateful that I've surrendered my vision and my desires and my wants to something higher than myself. So I wanted to go back and allow myself to rebuild from alignment and love and passion for servitude, helping others, and developing myself so that I can one day serve many, many other people all over again. So my mission and desire to want to build a movement of young men that are able to provide for themselves and use this real technical skill that I'm talking about. This is the deeper motivation behind wanting to teach these skills. It's not just surface level. It's not just to make money. It's truly to impact and change people the way that I've felt over the last 6 months. I've had to learn extremely in a very difficult and rude awakening kind of way. And so losing it all is fine. Losing yourself and losing your relationship with God in the process is not. Find your way to surrender to God and find God's mission and God's purpose for your life. Align yourself with a bigger vision and a bigger purpose beyond yourself. And who you become along the journey, the skills, the habits, the friends, and the relationship, and ultimately your relationship with Christ is what's most important as you go through along this journey. He will provide for you when there's nobody there. And I promise you, through anything else, your relationship with Christ will be the most valuable thing that I've walked away with. And I promise you that if you look for God, He will find a way to find you. And hopefully that this video served a bigger purpose in your life. And so as I rebuild, there's a vision, but I walk with faith. I walk with surrender to this bigger picture that I know with one day, if God wants me to be able to serve many other people, I pray that that's the case and that I am the vessel that He can use for a bigger vision, a bigger purpose, and a bigger mission to impact more people in this life. Because when we die, all things would have been meaningless unless we have made meaningful impact on people that we love, the future generation, and the legacy that we leave behind. So it's okay to be patient. It's okay to dig deep. You're gonna see me, and if you're watching this till this point, I pray that you can follow me on this journey and that can serve you, and that you learn a lot from this channel, because I'm learning in public. I'm making mistakes. I'm documenting these things, and I'm doing it publicly so that I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I've gone through so many different experiences, but I'm always going to be a student. There's something to learn from everybody. And there's this love and this passion for this game that I truly desire for you to one day have, or eventually have, or if you do have it, it's amazing, where you just feel in love with the game, you feel in love with what you're doing. And this might not be what I do for the rest of my life, and it probably won't be, because there's always continuous growth. But I know that this season that I'm on, and this path that I'm on of self-development and surrender and desire to want to be better, master a craft, be a better version of myself, will eventually lead me down one day to being impactful. So as I live my life out with humility and share the ugly side of chasing a bigger purpose than yourself, hopefully you can learn something from my journey and the mistakes that I made. So appreciate you for watching. Love you so much, and I'll catch you in another video. Peace.